Hey everyone, it's Leigh with Arts Council OKC Creative Aging Program, and this week we are going to do white charcoal Dreamcatchers for something a little different. So, materials: white and black charcoal pencils, black construction paper, big eraser, pencil sharpener, and a round plastic lid or anything round to trace. So I thought this would kind of be something a little fun and a little different, and I'll kind of be doing it as a little step-by-step. So you can find an image you like online. You know, these are just something that you can look at. Anyway, we'll talk about it more here in a minute, so let's get started. Let me grab all my stuff here. All right. Alright, so I've thought, while I know some of you probably saw the images of the Dreamcatchers and were like, oh my gosh, that's so involved and too hard, but really it isn't. So I'm just gonna break it down, and they're like, if you can see these are like, this one's a little more loose, kind of like it's actually made. Like handmade, and this is I just printed out a picture from online that's an actual Dreamcatcher, just because I liked how this one was set up. And as with everything, you know, feel free to kind of make up your own version. So, but I thought that I would start with one that's a little more simplified, and so anyway. Now, I've got this big lid right here is actually from an oatmeal carton, and you can use whatever you want. And this is also obviously a tape, used tape roll. So, and you can use anything in between. I thought maybe for demonstration purposes, it'd be easier for you all to see with an oatmeal lid. So, what you're going to do is we're just going to start by tracing your circle and figure out where you want the orientation on your paper. You know, I personally, since Dreamcatchers have a lot hanging down, I'm going to put it up higher. Maybe I should. And you can also use like a little plastic, yogurt container, use the top part of it, whatever. You don't necessarily have to do a lid. And as with everything, this is a little squirrely, don't worry about it. So, and we're just going to kind of guesstimate the center, okay? You know me, I like to kind of let you guys fly by the seat of your pants a little bit. So, what we're going to do is, for the Dreamcatcher shape, it's really for the web part of it, and this image anyway, is more like a teardrop. Now, one that's others are a little slightly different. So this is okay. What we're going to do is, I'm just keeping this line basic right now. We'll make it a little bit thicker, but we're using this as the inside edge, okay? And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to kind of do a teardrop shape here. And you can do it any number of ways. You can kind of come down here to the bottom of the circle, or you can have it kind of hit at the top. It doesn't matter. And now really don't worry about perfection right now. Certainly, and then this one would come up this way. So we're going to do one at the top, and then flip it over this way. It just makes it easier anyway. And I'm just going to go this way. And you know me, I like making lots of lines, so just do it how you like to do it. It would be helpful if they were kind of in a sort of a consistent shape or size, but that will not end everything. So see, because you can break this down, you can see you've got this one here, one directly to the side, and then you have another angle here. So we'll do, and then if it helps you kind of start where you know you're going to want a couple more, and then you can adjust them. So we know one's going to be in here, and then we know another one's going to be in about here, okay? And most of you will not be making a whole bunch of lines like I am. So we're going to follow this one, and then we're going to do the one that comes down over here, okay? And just basing it off of this one, we're going to do this here. Okay. And see, because I am so sketchy, when I'm drawing, it's kind of harder to see them, but that's okay. We're still going to motor on. And then so this one, we're just going to follow this here. Okay. And then we've got our last ones that come up here. Oh, and probably the less exact they are, probably the more realistic they are, as far as that, you know, someone's been making it versus computer generated. Okay, so this gives you your basic shape, right? So, and now I also have a white gel pen that is very stark white and very precise if you want really skinny lines. So once you get all of your stuff in, you can use this gel pen. It's just very, I'll just show you here. It's just really thin, which can be great, but could, you know, so you can add nice little details. But it looks very different than the white charcoal. All right. So now that you have your basic shapes and it's a little confusing, we'll worry about that here in a minute later. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go around here. Now remember, make sure you don't get your hand across here. So if you have something else to put your hand on, like another piece of paper, which I like to do because I have a tendency, as you guys know, to drag my hand. So, all right. So I'm just going to go around here and just kind of whatever thickness you want your Dreamcatcher to be, I'm just going to come up here and add this around. So we're just kind of doing something a little fun with the white charcoal today. I like the contrast of the black and white, and so this is actually really pretty simple. You know, I wanted, since we did something so kind of out there different last time with the watercolor mosaics, I wanted to kind of do something really simple for you this time. So, and just, if you just break things down into simple shapes, you know, it really makes it, you know, totally doable and a lot easier. Well, I mean, just meaning that you can actually, even if something looks complicated, just simplify it by breaking it down into shapes. And then you're like, oh, I can totally do this. You're like, yes. So, and then also, okay, now you can figure out where you want all of your feathers to hang and what you want that to look like. Some of them are really simple. Some of them have a whole bunch of feathers or other things. So it just, however you want it. So I, you know, like the idea of having one hanging down from the center. And so, you know, and basically what we're doing right now is just getting the placement of stuff. You're going to add a lot more details here. Okay. So what I did to kind of help out is I just chose the lines that I knew I was going to do, you know, that I really liked, since I had a lot of sketchy lines, and I just, you know, pressed down really nice and hard with the white charcoal pencil and just kind of went around. So all the other lines are still there, but they're not as apparent. And then that's what we'll do is go in and, you know, how we've done on the other things, and just kind of filled in with the black, just to kind of create that extra depth, but then it also, so that you're not trying to delicately erase in between, you know, because that's really kind of hard. So you can see and then you just choose which little space you want to do. So this kind of brings it back out. And then in here it kind of gets a little trickier, but not really tricky. You just have to pay attention to which, you know, where you want it to go. So, but here you get the idea. Now, let's see. And this is something really that you can do closer to the end, but I just wanted to kind of show you how you would bring, you know, really kind of bring out the lines again without having to try to, you know, get a little bitty eraser in there, because that's just not really feasible. So, because, you know, and anytime we do a white charcoal drawing, I always like adding the black charcoal pencil in there just because it gives a lot more depth and interest. So, okay, so you get this lovely idea. And then, you know, some of them have beads in here, and you can figure out where you want beads and, you know, kind of sketch out little beads. And then, you know, I'll go back in here too and add a little more black around the center just to kind of break this up so I can find the lines, the overlapping lines again. And then what I did next is just kind of gave myself an idea of where I wanted some of the feathers to be. And you can do just a nice little stylized feather. You can do whatever. And I have some little beads hanging here. So, and now this is the part that just takes the time. You're just going to really finesse your picture. And I did some little lines around the outside edge as if, you know, as it's wrapped in leather often or something, because I didn't want it just to be a solid. So, and then we'll bring those lines out too. And then basically now we're just going to keep adding in little details of the feathers. And then, you know, so if you have your little edge down here, depending on what color you want your feather. And just remember, this is where you're going to use your directional lines and just kind of when you're filling stuff in. And here again, you'll take your black pencil to kind of really bring out the edges of your feather. So, you know, because you can fill in parts of it, but then depending on what your feathers look like, and just kind of start out slow and kind of light, and then you can make it darker or lighter as you go. And then so you can make it as subtle or as stark as you want. And just take your time. And then you'll also bring out the lines of the cord everything's hanging on to. If you have a whole lot of stuff dangling down, you may not, just depending on how you want it done. So, 'cause you can have stuff hanging down past your feathers, or just have it into your feathers. So, and then also, as with everything else we've done, if you want, just to go in and do a really light layer of white charcoal underneath, so you have a base coat of your feather. And then slowly add a little more pressure. Because each time we do white charcoal, it's just you're using all of the basic techniques you've learned before and just kind of continuing to get more comfortable with using white charcoal pencil. And then you kind of go back in and add the black. go. And then you'll just kind of keep adding stuff. Toning it down or adding more. And you can totally make them, you know, pretty solid as far as one color if you want. I mean, pretty much anything goes. It's whatever you see in your head as far as the vision for your feathers and your Dreamcatcher. And just do some beads and just remember your directional lines, and I like to use the circular motion for round stuff. And so, and you just keep going. You can totally do this. This is actually a really kind of simple and kind of nice and fun little drawing to do. And then remember just to keep going, because if you make a line that you don't really like, you don't necessarily have to erase it. You just kind of keep going. And then we'll have a brighter line on this top one so that we'll have this one underneath. It'll have some white in it, but it'll be less bright. Now you don't have to do that. You can totally make them kind of similar. And then just kind of bounce back and forth between using the black and white pencil. So, as you know, as I'm the broken record again, just keep going. It's a slow process, but you all should feel really nice and comfortable with drawing with white charcoal now, or getting there. And we've got just different kinds of textures in this one, you know. So you've got your smooth textures and little fuzzy, you know, feather textures. And then for the leather, I would just do, you know, same kind of, just use your directional lines. And you can just kind of, and if you want to, just kind of leave a little bit of the black paper showing underneath so that you can come back and do more of a, you can do a line with your charcoal pencil, but and when stuff is wrapped, you know, it kind of overlaps. And so you can kind of have ones that are up higher a little bit more. So it won't be totally flat on the outside edge, so you can have little lumps. It's not super lumpy. Well, you can make it really lumpy if you want, depending on if it's like a heavy cord. But just kind of just keep filling it in. See, it's just slow build up of pencil. So the more pencil you add, the more your image comes to life. Okay, so I have taken some time to kind of fill in more, but now is at the point where everything is really kind of the same tone. So what you're going to want to do is, it's the same value, so we really want to kind of have a little more contrast. So now this is the part where, on the feathers, you'll start, pressing a little bit harder, and you can, or you can break the tip off. You can really kind of play around with this and see really what you like the look of. It definitely does not have to be overly realistic. You can have some really nice stylized elements, but see, right now I'm really pressing nice and firmly with the pencil, and it's really kind of giving those nice bright whites. So, and then don't really do what I just did, because you can actually smear it. I'm glad I missed. So anyway, so just kind of play around with it and see what you like. And then, because we don't want everything to be the same shades of gray, we want some really nice bright whites and really dark blacks. Okay, that'll give it the nicest bright contrast and dimension. And okay, so you can tell, even if some of it looks a little bit squirrely, but you get the idea of what adding nice bright whites, and then you can kind of come back in and add some heavier black lines. And then you're going to come in here too and kind of go around the edges where you want it to be a little darker and have a little more interest, and this will help bring it out too. But you can see, even just by adding in those little bits, that makes a big difference. But then do be aware that once you really get a heavy layer of white, it's kind of hard to add to it now, or really it's hard to erase, but so we can add a little bit with some black in here. Just kind of break some of that solid white up. And then if it helps, kind of bounce around to different things. So, because if you're stuck in one part and you aren't sure about it, then move on to something else and come back to it. So, and just kind of keep adding. And I added some little, like if we have little strings on here, and here again, if you want a really bright white bead, then just press harder. And then you can also do the same with, you can have little black beads here. You want to leave a little bit of white around it, so it's kind of an outline of a little bit of a shininess, and you can add some highlights in here. And then you can take your black pencil and kind of go around it, kind of get up really close to kind of fill it in so it doesn't really have an outline, but then it have a little line right across here. But so you get the idea, you're kind of bringing everything out. Same thing within here. This is what I started earlier, and this is where you want to kind of tighten up all of your little webbing in here. And this is when you figure out what thickness you want the actual Dreamcatcher web to be. So, but you see how doing all of this kind of really crisps it up and gives, it's really interesting. It's black on a black paper, but it also is a darker black than the paper, so it really kind of brings it out. So, and I like doing this instead of using the eraser, because the eraser is just taking the white off, but by adding the black charcoal pencil, it really adds some nice rich contrast to it and gives it kind of a three-dimensional look even in the space. So I'm just kind of going around and doing this. Now you don't have to fill the whole space up, but I just like kind of coming in right on the edges of the white. And okay, so you get the idea of doing this, because we're going to do this for the whole thing where we come in. And now remember, watch where your hand is, so you don't drag across all your pretty work. So, and I have this one folded up right here, since I, of course, have a tendency to do that a lot. So you're just kind of coming in, whoop, and try not to drop your pencil. Okay. And then in here you'd figure out which you want. You want to take this one out. And take your time, okay? Don't go, and be in a rush to hurry up and then create extra work for yourself because you have to fix something, okay? But just take your time. But you're just going to kind of come in here and do this with everything, okay? And then you'll figure out with these little ones how you want to do it. And it's fine if you just kind of make it up a little bit too. But you get the gist of, okay? So now what I did is, you can tell these are a little more fleshed out as far as the wrapping is concerned. On this, sorry, I'm gonna kind of tone down this a little bit. So, but then what I wanted to kind of come back and do is just kind of show how we kind of work this out a little bit more. And you can just kind of flip your, whatever is easiest for you to do, flip it around so you kind of make it easy for you. And so I'm just going to keep going in and remember, you can adjust how you're holding the pencil. And we're just kind of coming in and giving a little extra dimension to the wrapping around your Dreamcatcher. And I'm just kind of, you can see as I'm going around and the curve's still going this way, so if you're kind of flowing along the way, you're not going to go back the other direction, because if something is wrapped, it'll keep going in the same direction. And then we'll just add a little bit of not a whole lot of hump or lumpiness to it, just a little bit. Or you can make it super lumpy if you really want to. But then I'm still kind of leaving some of the paper, but I'm just adding more. Okay? You can see this is nice and bright white, but then you will come down and kind of tone some of this back. You really get the idea of how, by bouncing back and forth with the black and white pencils, that it just really adds some nice depth to it. And then you're going to kind of do the same thing with the edge. Just by adding a nice dark line around it, it really kind of brings it out and gives it a little bit of a shadow. But you can see how that's coming together. And some of it, you can make it really a little more subtle or more obvious, however you want to do it. This is your Dreamcatcher. And you may get in there when you're working on it and go, "Ooh, I really don't like the way that's working," and adjust it. So, and I'm just gonna, and I'm moving kind of fast because I'm just gonna be using circular motions and some directional line just to kind of get some shading in there, but not spending too much time, and just keep going around. And you can see the difference between this over here and where I still have, the line visible. But, and just take your time and keep going. And then this stuff I'll clean up in here too. And if you want, you can kind of take a little bit of an eraser and do that first. But the only problem with an eraser, once you have this much line work on it, is when you're trying to dust it off, you can smear the whole thing. So when in doubt, pick it up, do this if you really feel like you have to erase, or just use your black pencil, because you're also adding, and watch your hand, goodness. And see, this is a lot faster in my mind. You're cleaning your lines up and adding some contrast at the same time. And then you just need to decide if you want to fill it in a lot. That really looks kind of nice. So I'll probably fill in more dark, you know, because you can have really heavy black here and then just kind of fill it in with a little lighter layer of it. Okay? So just remember, totally doable. Break it down into shapes. You got your circle. And you have your little teardrops, your interlocking teardrops. And you can certainly do whatever kind of Dreamcatcher shape you want. You can have feathers and any other dangly things. But just take your time and just bounce back and forth between your white and black charcoal pencil. And just, main thing is have some fun. Okay? Totally doable. You got this. I look forward to seeing them when we can. And take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.